to wait.
Yeah, so we're going to have to listen to music, too.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, article's entitled, Rick Perry has the best story to tell of any contender.
Wow. That's praise without being faint or damning.
Was written by the notably liberal Matthew Iglesias.
Wow.
The show is actually going to start in about a minute and a half. For those of you going, what the heck is this they're talking about? We're just talking. That's what we do. It's GrokTALK, after all. What else would we call it? All right, I'm going to go load this live stream feed in here, and we're going to be ready to rock and roll in just almost literally and figuratively and whatever else a minute. Okay.
I'm going to start the live stream anyways.
All right, well, I can't stop you, can I?
No. Well, you could pull the plug.
Oh, yeah. Well, for 40 seconds, I guess we'll just let it. All right, Mike, hang on the line, buddy. We'll be right back. A few more minutes. A few more seconds, pardon. Stay tuned. 20 seconds. We'll be right back with GrokTALK. We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
My co-host Ed Nail's not here yet, but Skip is here.
Here I am, Bo.
Good morning, Skip.
Good morning.
How are you? Oh, and we have Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Steve. Yes, Skip has come to haunt us because I'm at a distance.
I was saying he's come back. He's come to visit us from Sabbatical Island, and he will be joining us today for the program because Mike is down in Rhode Island and couldn't be here to help push buttons and turn things and do other stuff. And the way this is set up, I can't do it from here. So we needed somebody, and Skip's like, I'll do it. But Ed Nail is also expected at some point this morning, and we are also expecting former House Speaker Bill O'Brien is going to come in, and we're going to have a little conversation with him. George Lambert, who has been in the House, has run for the Senate, has run for governor. He's going to come in, and we're going to talk about Jennifer Horn running the Unity bus over Frank Ginta. And Jane Cormier is also expected for Right to Life Update. So we have a number of guests who will be joining us today.
Really?
Really.
Haunting? Does that mean I'm just a ghost?
Haunting. Right now, yes, you are. Spirit. Apparition. A presence.
Does that mean it's going to make me lose more weight?
Lose more weight. You have lost weight.
But more.
More. Well, see now.
I lose 10 pounds.
Now, here's a question. Not blogging has caused you to lose weight.
No, I haven't lost any more weight, but I haven't gained any back.
Oh, okay, because you look thinner.
Oh, 50 pounds is 50 pounds.
That's true. That's a lot of weight. That's a good-sized dog.
Yeah, I've lost a Mika. Mm-hmm. The name of my dog.
Yeah, not the insurance company.
Yeah. But I have to lose 10 more pounds, and then the doctor said, once I hit 195, then I can get rid of my medications.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's always a good goal.
So I've been stuck here for 3 months.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what they say. You know, you lose some weight initially, and then all of a sudden you get hung up, and then people get depressed, and they eat, and then they gain it all back, and such is the end of the diet.
We have a problem, by the way.
We have a problem?
We have a severe problem. I'm pointing to it.
Oh, there's no banner.
It's an apparition.
Yeah, we were here for an hour, and we didn't bring the banner in.
I will go do that.
Thank you, sir.
You can go ahead and cut my mic.
Oh, I can cut your mic, yes. We don't make that cut.
You can talk to Mike now.
I can talk to Mike and cut your mic. Alrighty, then. Well, we've done that. That has happened.
Right. So the surprising thing we were talking about just as we came to the show opener was that Vox.com said something nice about a Republican candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Manager Iglesias, no less.
Elaborate.
And, so it was written Thursday, and he starts by saying nobody seems to be taking Perry very seriously because of his poor run in 2012. And he said, but he does have at least one big thing going for it. He's by far and away the most coherent story of any candidate in the field about why his record in office should make you think he could deliver the kind of prosperity the voters crave.
That's true.
And, he carries on in that vein, and he puts up the chart of the job records with Perry at the top of the pack. Not so kind about Walker and Jeb Bush for lefty reasons rather than our kind of reasons, but he at least makes the point that Perry has a coherent record on which to run and a good story. And I don't think anybody's surprised that Perry is in the race. I think what they will be surprised about, if they've not been paying attention the past year, is that Perry 2.0 is going to look a whole lot different.
I would expect.
He is
not on pain medication.
Hand-rested and ready, not in back pain, not on pain medication, sharp as a tack. And as I think it was Politico wrote of his time in Iowa recently, winning the grassroots one handshake at a time. Let us see. He's a long way from the front of the pack. If you were a betting man today, Scott Walker would probably run away with it, or maybe Ted Cruz, based on how moderate the electorate was. But as we know in primary politics, a few months can change everything.
Yes, and we have quite a few months left.
Yes, he does. I think this is a whole lot different from last time, where he jumped in late, caused a huge explosion, and then didn't last. Here he's got in early. He actually got in over a year ago without saying it. He's been everywhere, working the grassroots, and doing it very well. Whether that's enough to overcome the unfortunate impression he left last time in the low information grassroots, I don't know. But if you get to meet him, you'll see a whole different character. That's not to say there aren't a whole lot of good characters out there. Scott Walker's got a great record and doesn't seem to scare the establishment, as we observed in person last weekend when our friend from Waterville Valley gave what I would have said was a fairly enthusiastic intro that seemed like you almost believed every word of it.
There were some rather interesting remarks at that event. I know it's a Republican rah-rah event.
No, but
not just the gnome, though. I mean, Jennifer Horn's unity speech is ridiculous given recent events this week. I think Jeff Chittister's introduction of the gnome was a bit too glorious. I think he...
Are you looking for a different word? I can give you one. Smarmy?
Smarmy? I know that's what's expected, but I think that some of the things that...
Let me mute me for 1 second, guys. You're right.
Something that I don't know, strained the bounds of believability.
Credulity.
To anybody who really understands the nature of party politics at the top, I didn't make any faces or roll my eyes or anything because I understood that's why he was there. But I think it was a little bit too nice, his introduction. And I like listening to Governor Sununu talk. I mean, he's a good speaker. Obviously, he's been at it for a long time. He quite often says some very important things that are relevant, and then he quite often says things that just sound like total nonsense to me. But, I mean, he was there to introduce Governor Walker, who did a great job. My wife, who doesn't spend a lot of time listening to this garbage and who does spend a good deal of time away from politics, thought it was great. I gave her some background information on him before we got there so that she'd know who he was and what he was about. And she said, good dinner, nice people, good conversation, nice speech. So all in all, it was a good event. And we did record it and post almost all of it. Let me see Mike's back. You there?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a very well done event. It was, of course, organized by the Rockham Republicans, including Brian Murphy, and, of course, very ably supervised by Diane Bitter, who put a huge amount of work into it. But there was a lot of stuff that was really interesting there. The way Sununu introduced Walker, I ended up talking to Chris Sununu a little later near the head table. And Chris, by the way, is very happy to come on GrokTALK, and I think we can say he's been a pretty good conservative member of the Executive Council. And of the Klan, he's probably the one we'd want to have on to talk to. So he's very willing to come on, and we've got his information.
Yeah, we have interviewed him in the past, by the way, Mike.
Yeah, I thought we had, but
Yes.
I think this would be a good season to interview him about his possible plans and a few other things. But anyhow, so I just happened to ask Pearson, so his enthusiastic introduction, did it imply anything? And he said, actually, he's not endorsing anybody right now. There's at least 5 of the field that are good friends and very good people, and he finds it very hard to pick. So I sort of tried to push the line of questioning a little further and mention the conservatives. At that point, he said, this probably not surprising for him, surprising to me, they're all conservatives. I said, well, to a varying degree, no, they're all conservatives. So I suppose compared to the liberals, but we probably wouldn't quite put it in the same terms he would. But I have to agree with him that there are probably 4 or 5 that we would call good conservatives that we'd be very happy to see at the front of the pack. They probably wouldn't be the exact same 5 that he would. But I bet there'd be some overlap, and I bet Walker would be in that overlap.
That was another issue that I had, and I always have when we go to these events with lots of Republicans who do things in leadership positions in the party that indicate that they don't support a conservative position on a wide range of issues, and and they call all these people good conservatives, and I'm like, that's not true. I mean, I can show you why it's not true, but obviously that's not the place to do it, and so that's another thing. But again, it's the Rockingham County Republican Committee event. There's lots of people there. Everybody's behaving themselves, ordered society, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because we get tossed out if we didn't.
Yeah.
They don't invite us back.
It was good. We were there. We had our press stand. And yes, Steve, I owe you the tail end of the Walker speech. I'm sorry. I do have it.
Okay. Nobody's knocking down the door to get it, but
no. It was good. We were there. We got video. Everybody was polite and almost nice to us. Maybe they didn't recognize us dressed up. I don't know.
I can't even. Oh, that brings up an interesting point. I can't tell you how many people looked sideways at me and then realized who I was and said, "Where's your hat?" And I was like, I can't wear a hat to this event. That's not the kind of event that it is. So they didn't. They were like, because they didn't have. I always have the hat on. So
I always wear my hat until now that I've lost it.
Yes. Skip lost his hat.
My Grok hat.
Wow. Well, Skip, since you've lost the hat, it's time to pass the hat. And we'll all chip in and go for an order of 24 Grokster hats. So you can have one for each of us and some in the back room for when new members join. Because Land's End wants...
Uh-oh. Land's End wants... Call us back. Land's End wants a lot of money.
I think it is time.
Land's End lost a lot of money, wants a lot of money for hats.
Yeah, well, I paid a lot to have those logos done, too.
Yeah.
Both sets.
Yeah.
And what I'm talking about is that while we do have a more intricate logo for us...
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, my headset died.
Yeah. We also have another somewhat simplified logo that's more affordable for anybody who would want to order some Grok-ware. The Land's End, to order Grok gear is on the website. Feel free to pass through. But yeah, I think it's basically about time that I finally fulfill my promise. I feel like it's almost the promise I made to my kids a long time ago. It took me 8 years to fulfill the promise of, yeah, we're all going to Disney World in Florida. But I did it.
Yay!
So, yeah, it's just about that time.
It is. All right, well, it's also about that time. We're going to take a short break, and you stay there, everybody, and we will be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Grok Talk.
Welcome back to GrokTALK. We have Mike on the phone. We have Skip over in front of his laptop. We have me, and Bill O'Brien's here for his segment. He arrived a little bit early. I got to figure out which headset Bill is on. Say hi, Bill.
Hi.
Hi. There we go. Yep, we found you. Okay.
Right.
GrokTALK brought to you by GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Visit them at cnht.org.
And we at GrokTALK.
And we at Granite Grok.
Yeah, and we still continue on because I just paid the server bill.
Oh, good. Good. All right, so we're good for at least another month.
Yep.
GraniteGrok.com. Check out all the stories. Lots of news, lots of opinion, lots of interesting things going on. Not always the things you want us to talk about, but, that could be your fault because you didn't tell us. We sometimes just miss stuff, or there's too much going on, or we don't have enough time in the day. And if you have a link or a story and you want to bring it to our attention, you can email us at nameofblogger, Skip, Steve, Mike. No, you can't email Mike at GraniteGrok.com, but at GraniteGrok.com.
Or GrokWatch.
Or GrokWatch, yes. You
Which
could
is
also
the preferred
email
way.
GrokWatch at GraniteGrok.com, and I'll get the story and the lead, and if you write it, I'll post it for you under your name. Yes. You get the byline. So,
although sometimes in the comments, people get very brusque and very adamant and very angry when they want us to write about stuff that doesn't interest us at all.
Yeah.
And my only response is, get your own blog.
Yeah. What's wrong? You don't know how to write?
Yeah, we are not a public utility. We write
That's right.
basically on what amuses us.
You pay the server bill? We'll talk.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And somebody was asking me the other day, Skip, why you don't run for office. I think we just discovered the reason why.
What's that? I'm willing to tell people off?
Yeah.
Not enough
Actually,
diplomacy.
I'll be honest with you. I made a promise to my wife a long time ago. The highest office that I would run for was budget committee in my town. Although once she gave me the authority to go ahead and run for county commissioner, because that would have been a paying gig. It pays much more than in the New Hampshire House of Representatives.
Yeah, we get good 1880 wages.
But it's a case where the most esteemed wife is disabled, so I am the breadwinner. So that's basically the reason why I don't run, because I have to work. If I didn't have to work, trust me, I'd have so much fun.
The demographics of the New Hampshire legislature are a perfect example of how there's no perfect solutions to anything. And if you're a Democrat seeking utopia, you never get it. You just plague us with your attempts to get to it. Because what happens is we don't pay anybody anything to be there. And so you end up getting a lot of young people, older people, people with indulgent spouses. And you don't get working people there. On the other hand, if you paid them, then you'd get careerists who are there who would be much more interested in their paycheck than the people's business. So there's no easy answers, and there's no perfect answers.
Well, I would rather have it the way it is now. The only thing that I take exception to, and we did find one person who was an illegal alien receiving welfare and was advocating for amnesty in the way that the state of New Hampshire was being run, and we ran her out to where she resigned. That was a few years ago.
It was a trifecta of ills, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was, everybody says that, especially with men, as they get older, they want to know that they've left a mark and something more than just a blood spot on the street. And I am very proud to say Granite Rock has been there from the conservative side, and that we have made differences from time to time. Certainly we made a big difference in supporting you, to which I will always be proud of.
Oh, and I appreciate that, and I do appreciate that. I think that particular state representative sort of left the area, if I'm not mistaken.
Left the state, too.
She was gone.
Yeah.
She to use a term that I've always thought is a little bit wonkish, but she's self-deported.
Yeah, when we found out she was on welfare and then advocating for more welfare, I went, this shall not pass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. At the risk of sounding like Gandalf.
Well, that's one way to get a paycheck from the government and serve in the House, I guess.
Yeah,
Yes,
she was getting paid more than you, Bill.
Well, wait a minute. Was I going to be speaker then? Because I would have got that 25% raise to $125 a year, which I tried to explain to my wife at the time.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Yeah. So, but that's the basic reason. If I was to win the lottery, you can believe in a heartbeat I'd be self-funding and I wouldn't care. I would have
well,
so
at some
much fun.
point, in your later years, when you get to be a middle-aged or even older person, we can
Middle age.
we can get
Bill,
you up, we can get you up there to.
Have you seen the color of my hair lately? This
Yes,
is
but
not middle age.
To quote Emily Sandblade, who was here last week, she said, "I'm late middle age."
I heard that remark.
Oh, I don't know. I think 60 is the new 30. I'm pretty sure. Of that.
I'm not that far from 60. Trust me.
Okay, so then you're going into your 30s. So. At any rate, so that means that I'm going to be leaving. I won't be running again, but obviously I want good people to come and follow us there, and you should be one of them.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate those kind words. I'd fit in like a lead balloon with all the Democrats. And the rhinos.
We would expect nothing less.
Right. You would have to be on Murderer's Row. No place else for you.
Yeah.
And I would be bringing the Eye of Sauron with me.
So have you ever explained to your listeners what Murderer's Row is in the
I think we did. I was trying to. I mean, you can explain it better than I probably did, but we had a discussion about it back in January.
So just quick on the background, as was usual practice, the New Hampshire House Republicans, in trying to organize this session, had a caucus, a pre-session caucus, and voted the person to be speaker. Tradition has always been that person, if you're in the majority, gets the majority of the votes when the House organizes. But we had one of the more moderate, or some might even call liberal, Republicans join with every single Democrat, it appears. Perhaps not everyone, but two or three might have departed. And voted with a minority of Republicans and voted this person as Speaker. Now, seeing that I was the elected leader of the House caucus, what he did, which kind of, I think he was trying to punish us, but it actually turned out to be kind of a lot of fun. He took a lot of the real conservatives, people who were supporting me, and he strung us out in the longest row in the New Hampshire House. And so there's 13, 14 of us in this row, and immediately we began calling it Murderer's Row from the old batting order of, what was the 1926 Yankees?
Yes.
Was Murderer's Row. And so he ended up, I think, getting what he didn't want, which was a concentration of the conservatives willing to challenge him at every turn.
Well, good for you. Good for you.
So it was like a lot of things, there's unintended consequences in the legislature, and that's one of them.
So you won't be running for the New Hampshire House of Representatives again?
No, I've been. This is my 5th term, and quite frankly, Skip, it shocks me that I've been up there 5 terms. I think we should go up there, try to do what we can, and then get out of there for the next group of people to come along.
And I think that's, believe it or not, I believe that's the right way to do it. As Doug Lambert, who was my co-founder of Granite Rock, used to say, the whole idea of American representative democracy is the citizen farmer out in the fields laying down his tools and then serving, doing his time, and then immediately coming back and picking up those self-same tools and proceeding along with their American lives.
And there's that idea, which is you bring your community and common sense sensibilities up there, and you work on some issues, and then you leave for a while. And even in the New Hampshire legislature, we have members who have been up there 30 years. We have the chairman of finance, for example, Neil Kirk, who came there in his 30s and is now in his later 60s and all, and so still at it, and we have Gene Chandler is 16th or 18th term up there. Again, came in his early 30s and is now in his 60s, and it's just one perspective says, well, that's great. How much of his life is he dedicated to the people in New Hampshire, and that's good. On the other hand, you become institutionalized,
yes.
And plus, as you've spent so much time voting on legislation that controls the life of others, it almost seems invariable that they begin to think, I know more than the others. We had a state senator this past week in the budget debate said that the role of legislatures is to make people better.
Sharon Carson.
Who said what?
Sharon Carson.
Sharon Carson.
It's up on the blog site. Someplace.
Oh, but I got to put it on my progressives in the proper.
It's up there. You'll find it. All you got to do is go to Facebook and look for it. You'll find it's everywhere.
Well, and that's
I need a note. Give me a piece of paper,
that's
please.
That's just basically was sort of a probably
she's
from
been
her
there for a
perspective
while,
an unduly candid. She's been there
Yeah.
for a while, and an unduly candid remark on her part, rather than what I think some of us says that the role of government is just prevent anarchy and then leave people alone.
Mm-hmm.
She thinks that, and a lot of folks who've been up there for a while think, we just know how to run society and run people's lives better than they know how to run their own lives.
Well,
and that's bad. We should get out of there.
Well, that's what
is,
New Hampshire State Rep Jim Webb has said the same thing. The purpose of legislation is to mandate behavior, and that's wrong. That is absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
And in fact,
well, that actually is the purpose of legislature, but in his legislation, but in the context, he implied that it was his job to run your life with legislation, which is not exactly the same thing, but.
Well, no, I might be wrong about the context of Senator Carson's remark, but I think it might have had to do with legalization of marijuana or decriminalization of marijuana. And I've always thought when we look at our criminal laws, what we ought to be doing is not outlawing normative behavior. There's a significant number of people who choose to use marijuana for recreational purposes, medicinal purposes, recreational. I'm not. I think it's a stupid thing to do. I think we have enough that we can do that will harm our life without, turning to marijuana to do it. But you want to know what? That's personal to me. And other people can live productive lives and non-disruptive lives by using marijuana. It's not for us to shape them. If they're not harming anyone else, it's not for us to say, that's not my choice, therefore it shouldn't be your choice.
Mike?
Yeah. Guys? Yeah. So, two things there. So first of all, on the role of government, I believe is the role of the constitutions and the legislatures, the laws, to restrain the worst excesses of human nature, which is exactly what our Constitution was designed to do, which is to prevent people that were essentially drunk with the pursuit of power from taking complete control of the country. And secondly, what Bill says is, I believe that we should punish the behavior, not the possession. You can use any substance you want, but as soon as you go out there and harm someone, that's an actionable offense.
Correct. And I didn't mean to besmirch Senator Carson's record overall based on one statement, and I wasn't trying to put words in her mouth or intent, but she did say it, and it will be taken that way. And I think it is more of an effect of what we were talking about. When you're there for so long, you spend your day in and day out trying to craft rules for society, and it begins to become this idea in your head that that's what you're there for.
And unfortunately, we hear that all too often. Now, even though I am not blogging right now, I am making some bookmarks. And the EPA head administrator, Gina McCarthy, said the last couple of days over the new Clean Water Act that and I'm going to paraphrase here, that government is supposed to lead the way, point the direction, and then everyone else in the free market is supposed to figure out how to make that happen. And that's a very dangerous precedent because it puts government over the people instead of the free market or the individual citizen saying, I've got a great idea, I'm going to go after it, period, instead of working just within the strictures of what government says has to be done.
And so we see that on the left. And I always think in this context of a famous statement that was made, I don't know, almost 60 years ago now, over 60 years ago now. And it was made by a German leader. I think it was Walter Ulbricht was the communist leader of East Germany, and there was a little bit of a rebellion. I think it was in 1953 in East Germany, and they had to put it down. And so somebody asked him, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, we just have to get a better people." And so there's always this effort on the left to get a better people, because if you are seeking utopia, you're going to find out that people don't agree with your definition and don't conform with your goals as to what utopia should be. So there's always this effort to criminalize what you see as a deviation from that.
All right, we're going to take a minute. Be right back. Stay tuned.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
We are going to have to redo the technology because it is getting a little bulky. All right, GrokTALK, segment 2. Welcome back to the program. We have former House Speaker Bill O'Brien at the end of the table. Of course, Mr. Murphy has come off Sabbatical Island to spend the day with us. Mike Rogers is on the phone. My name is Steve McDonald. We are brought to you by GraniteGrok.com and the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. Don't forget to check us out on Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and of course at GraniteGrok.com. We are also on Facebook and Twitter, and we would like you to like us and follow us. Just look for Granite Grok.
You stream as well?
Yeah.
And 2,500 YouTubes on the Granite Grok YouTube channel.
Lots of
Hoorah.
Lots of current information and history. So Bill perfectly finished and complemented what I started, because that's the whole point about the left. Where conservatives and our founding fathers sought to set rules to limit human behavior, the most worst excesses of human behavior, personality. What the liberals want to do is they want to perfect the society, perfect the people, whether that's through eliminating unwanted races, whether it's through the science of eugenics, or whether it's through laws that wrap you so tightly you can barely move. They want to make the people into their image of the perfect peon.
I need to add two quick notes about the show. I think Ed forgot he was coming in today, just to clear that up because he's not here. And we wanted to know that we added a duck. Okay. We added a duck to the show. This is David.
I was looking at the duck over there.
It's actually the AFP duck I got at the Liberty Forum, but we figured that he doesn't have a trademark on him yet, but we're working on that. So this is David the duck, okay, and then we have Ed Larkin the Flasher. So Anyway, let's go on with the more important things.
I wanted to add on to what Bill was talking about and what Mike brought up. We've already seen this experiment in Britain under the Labour government where they decided they needed a new population. So they opened themselves up to lots of migration. And look at what the mess that they're in now with their Muslim population. That basically you said, now that we're here, a lot of them, especially the leadership, are living on the dole, and they are advocating for the overthrow of the British government. Now we're starting to see this here, starting somewhat under George Bush, where he capitulated to the amnesty of 3 million illegal aliens, and then with George Bush II, and certainly now with Obama, we're seeing the transformation because that illegal number is not 11 or 12 million, but more like 30 million, and they just want to open it up. They want a new people because they have found that we stiff-necked Americans don't want to submit to what they are, to what they want. And you see them attacking the foundations of traditional Americanism, and especially now Christianity and the conscience of thought, which was enshrined in the Constitution. Well, we've seen what Obama's thought about that. So they are trying that example here. And the problem will be it will turn out as badly as it is turning out to be in Britain or in Germany, where they've also opened it up. And now Italy's having the problem with the migrants coming over there. They're not assimilating.
France.
They don't understand the basic philosophy. And our educational system for native-born Americans is no longer teaching it. So we're screwed. Thank you.
And so there's so much that's packed into that statement and so many different examples of it. Interestingly enough, I was listening to this interview with Ann Coulter, and she just has come out with a book called Adios America. And she reaches back, I think as some of us have understood, to a 1965 change in the U.S. immigration laws. There was a bill that was passed and was actually sponsored by the esteemed Senator Edward Kennedy,
the swimmer.
And so the plan, and this isn't like conspiracy stuff. You know, there've subsequently been many quotes that indicated that the plan was to change the population of the country so that it would be much more amenable to the Democrat Party, to the liberals, and that means get a lot of immigrants into the country and get them not from the sources where we had immigration come before, which was primarily Europe, but to go to second and third world countries, and also to get a different type of immigrant in. 30% of the immigrants coming into this country, even legally, as you pointed out, don't have a high school education. And so if you couple the openness now of our immigration laws with the growth of the welfare state, what you get is people coming to this country to vastly improve their lives as they did in the past, but now by going on welfare. And
Bill, that's fabulous, because that's actually what happened to England in the late days of empire, beginning of the Commonwealth. They threw open the doors, they made the welfare state more generous, and so the place filled up with Indians, Pakistanis, and Jamaicans. Now, to be fair, the Indians and Pakistanis mostly came to work. They were doctors and stuff, shopkeepers in some cases. But there were a lot of Jamaicans came over with nothing more than weed and welfare, to put it bluntly and a little too stereotypically. And there was tremendous pushback when it eventually became obvious that they were going to have to restrict those numbers somehow.
Yeah, and so you even see it in Barack Obama's family of illegal immigrants. You have his aunt living in public housing in Boston for years, subject to 2 deportation orders and just refusing. You have his uncle living in Framingham and going through multiple criminal cases and all. It's just it's a type of immigrant that in the past would have been refused entry, It would have been set back if they conducted themselves in the way that immigrants now do. And you're right, it isn't. You hear this $11 million figure, and Ann Coulter made a very good argument that they've been using that figure for 10 years. It was based upon Census Bureau surveys. The Census Bureau would go and ask someone, "Are you an illegal immigrant?" And, "Oh yeah, U.S. government agent. I'm an illegal immigrant." Curiously enough, some did answer
they must have, but that's a lot like asking somebody, "Is that stolen property?"
Yeah, right.
No.
Yeah, and so the figure is somewhere between 30 and 50 million, and it's just like voter ID when we argue that in the New Hampshire House or in any legislature or in Congress. The arguments that are given are not the arguments that are meaningful to the Democrats. They want all of these undocumented new voters to be left in the country where they will vote for Democrats. They'll vote for the welfare state. They'll vote for a big state because that's why they're here.
One of the things that I have written about and have been saying is that, since illegal immigration hasn't gone the way that Obama has wanted legislatively, he's been doing this by executive fiat. And now with his different programs, it's basically, as we saw this week, the IRS basically said, yes, illegal aliens will be able to get tax refunds even though they never filed, but through the EITC, which was, there's money going to them that way. If they are issued the driver's licenses as Obama has wanted, well, that's one of the primary documentations to see if you are a legal voter or not. That doesn't say whether you are a citizen or not. And I've been decrying the motion that this country's been going to. It's like, what's left of being an American citizen? Right. These illegal aliens are going to get almost all. Well, no, they're going to be getting money from our taxes.
No,
they're going to get
American
full
citizen. Being American citizens, you pay for everybody else.
Well, that's what it comes down to, and it goes back to the Alinsky philosophy of using power or obtaining power to take from the haves to give to the have-nots. And if nothing else, the federal government is best at cutting checks. And that's exactly what Obama and a lot of the left wants to do. They want to take from those that have. They see the Americans as being, and I'll be blunt, I think most of the socialist Democrats in the United States see most of us regular Americans as being oppressors just because of who we are. And why shouldn't we be giving? This is legislating behavior. Because we won't give it, we're going to be forced to send it to these people.
And you know what one of the distinguishing features of a socialist economy is, Skip? It's that the real economy goes underground. If the people are being taxed beyond their ability to bear it, they will find ways to earn money that are not taxed. And eventually, the taxable economy will shrink to the point where the government is in severe distress, like in Greece, or where the currency is cheaper than the toilet paper, like Venezuela.
Well, frankly, there's less toilet paper than there is money down there.
But Mike, one of the things that concerns me is that we begin to talk about these issues in terms entirely of cause and effect. So let me give an example. I was listening to a discussion of whether or not it's possible to have a 90% income tax rate, or if you can truly not exceed, the discussion was 75%. And never was there, so that can it be done, what's the cause, what's the effect, rather than an understanding that of two things. One is, if you have a government that's taking that much money, it's really an oppressive government, one. And then two, the natural rights understanding that that's somebody else's money. That's not the government's money.
But
that's not all of our money. How could we...
Absolutely, you can have that rate. We had those rates until John F. Kennedy came along, for God's sake.
Yeah, but no one ever said, and there were good conservatives conducting this discussion I was listening to, and no one ever said, what gives the government the right to ever assume that they can confiscate property that way? And the only concern is, have we suppressed economic initiative to the point that we won't be able to get more in the future? And that's the proper, the founding fathers' question would have been, what gives you the right?
Well, the problem is that with progressivism, incremental socialism, they talk often that we are a very wealthy nation. You hear it here in New Hampshire. We are a wealthy state. No, we're not a wealthy state, and we're not a wealthy nation. We have individuals who have wealth, but they don't see it that way because they only see the collective, and they believe that they have the ability. And I think a lot of Republicans, the rhinos that have gone over to this, we know better than you, as we were talking about earlier, and as you pointed out, it's our wealth.
And so it's built into that statement that you didn't build this.
Yes.
You know what? I'm trying to put together a little business here, and I don't find any telephone number I can call and say, I need you to build a business for me, government. I really want...
Oh, that's not true. I had some wood delivered because we're going to have another cold winter.
Okay.
And the guy who drops the wood for me has been doing it for several years. He and his wife want to open up a new business. So they went out and got an FDA grant for $10,000, and they're going to do a tunnel truck garden. And the money for this tunnel, the special environment and enclosure, is coming strictly from the government. So that's where he's getting his seed money.
Is it a grant or a loan? Or?
It's a grant, complete grant. That's it. That's how he's starting his company.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I kid you not. And I'm sitting there going, and I like the guy. He's a hard-working kind of guy.
You can't fault people on an individual level
right.
for taking free.
But
if the government gives the money away and it's going to help you start your business, it's almost a case you'd be stupid not to take it. You'd have to have very, very strong principles to say, no, this is wrong on all levels. I want the program shut down.
Yeah, but we've got $5 trillion in debt now. But
of federal debt, bonded debt, but it doesn't take into consideration all the unfunded liability, Social Security obligations, pension obligations, all of which exist and legal enforceable, at least the pension is, and add up to, choose your figure, 40 or 50 trillion dollars that the federal government has to come up with over the next 20, 30 years.
It's like Glenn Reynolds over at Instapundit keeps saying, I'll believe that it's a crisis when everybody in leadership acts like it's a crisis.
All right, we're going to take a 60-second break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
I'm going to read something that I started writing that kind of, sort of, almost maybe applies to our discussion. Let's hope. As a passing thought I had, the professional left and their media homunculi bemoan the decline of America from its once proud manufacturing heritage. We don't build things anymore, and where have all the good-paying manufacturing jobs gone? The better question is, where are the hardworking Americans who would work in manufacturing if the left stopped pushing policy that made it almost impossible to create those jobs in the first place? The answer is to taxpayer-funded colleges, spending federally pimped loans to major in social justice studies, women's, gender, queer, race, environmental, wage, left-handed, albino, lesbian, and so on, from whence an endless horde of properly propagandized experts are belched out onto America's increasingly less fruitful plains. Drifts of these over-credentialed snowflakes accumulate in well-funded places where all they can build are straw men, narrative-spewing advocacy groups that manufacture hate and discrimination to justify their existence, peopled with progressive acolytes who couldn't even change a tire on their own Prius. But they can pontificate about how unjust the world is and how we, the non-credentialed peasants who change a tire, couldn't build that without them, whatever that is. And to argue otherwise, by the way, is a microaggression or maybe it's hate speech. And they'll be damned if their America is going to be the kind of place where that sort of thing is allowed.
Order, my friend.
This is going to be a classic.
So,
speaking of changing tires, did anybody else catch on Fox and Friends that they were doing a bit in the morning about manly things to do? And one of them was to change a tire. And so they went outside to the street where there was a tire to be changed on a car. And did you know that our former U.S. Senate candidate, Scott Brown, can't change a tire?
Really?
Yes.
How did they catch up with him?
Because he was, for whatever reason, he's been showing up. He's been on Outnumbered and Fox and Friends and some of the other stuff. And so he was there in the morning, and the whole crew went out, and he couldn't change a tire.
What's to know about changing a tire?
Knowing how to put the jack on, how to do the tire
you lift
iron.
up the darn car, take off the lug nuts, and they go back on when you have a new tire in hand.
That's right.
Howie Carr calls...
it stinks being on the phone, Mike, because we can talk over you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, bring him on.
Speak.
That's fine. Yeah, so that sounds like another candidate that was in just to get a talk show and a book deal.
It certainly...
I'm looking for my talk show and a book deal here, Mike. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, thinking of talk shows and book deals, what kind of deal is it when the guy who double-crossed conservatives and cost H.W. Bush's re-election by conspiring, and that's the correct word, with Dick Darman to break the No New Taxes pledge in 1990 or thereabouts, and couldn't deliver his own state of which he'd been governor to said H.W. Bush during the re-election campaign, thinks that he's the one best qualified to write about the guy's presidency.
I've never understood that particular individual's charms, certainly, or currency in New Hampshire politics. But I will tell you this: when I was speaker and I'd go down to Washington to talk to people about what we're doing here and see if I could get some support for our efforts, particularly in the right to work struggle that we had. One of the first questions I'd get among a certain group in Washington when I'd say, look, I'm the Speaker of the House in New Hampshire, is, does John Sununu know you down here? And so he held some attention down there.
Somebody offered him some money.
He does, but you know what? I think it's fading, and I think if he doesn't back a winning horse this time, it's going to fade some more.
Yeah, he's a smart guy with a sharp tongue, and that tends to intimidate people.
He's a very smart guy. I don't take that away from him.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes he's on the wrong side of issues, and even though he himself has a very solid appreciation of the Constitution, he sometimes is working with forces that are not on the side of the Constitution.
We were talking about Scott Brown, and I have to bring this up because we do have a pet name for Governor Sununu, Papa Smurf, as you probably well know.
That's right.
Howie Carr calls John Kerry, erstwhile candidate for president, now Secretary of State, calls him Lurch, or Lurch is a great one. He has another nickname he uses as well, Live Shot. But I think Scott Brown now deserves the moniker of Lugnuts. Scott Lugnuts Brown.
There you go. Very good. Excellent.
You can throw that in that. That's a corker of a post. I got to read that one.
Oh, well, that's pretty much the whole post.
Oh, so when's it go live?
Anytime is fine.
Okay. I got another question for Mr. O'Brien.
Please.
What is this new little business?
Oh, the business I'm involved in is a software business. Primarily, we sell our services through subscriptions to a cloud implementation of the service, and it is to provide security for documents, electronic data rooms. And it has very rich functionality. You can put any document in there, Excel, Word, anything, graphics, pictures, whatever. And there's both operator and hosting shielding. You put it in there, we don't even know what's in there. You can invite people to the data room or send the document to them, but put restrictions on it. You can send the document to you and say you can look at it once for the next 5 minutes, and then it evaporates. Or we can give it to you and you can look at the document, but you can't print it.
Yeah, because I've been doing document management systems for the last 15 years.
Yeah, so what this is a functionality similar to what you'll get at the low end, with a Dropbox, a box, but much higher functionality. And one of the things that we've done with it, and this is where we have our growth opportunity here, is we've made a version of it that is compliant with U.S. government regulations on how to handle information that relates to military uses or police enforcement uses. You might have heard the acronym ITAR, International
We have to deal with that all the time.
So International Trafficking in Arms, we have a cloud solution that is ITAR compliant.
Okay.
And we've been down to the State Department and talked to them about it. We're trying to get them to issue a policy saying you can use cloud solutions if you do the following things. And
right, when the Secretary of State can have her own personal email server, I doubt you'll get very far.
What a fiasco that is, I was thinking as I was driving up here about the article that came out in the New York Times. You guys probably came across this a couple of days ago, maybe it was yesterday, talking about how Marco Rubio and his wife had over a 20-year period, 18-year period? 17-year period, had, 17... I can't remember.
Traffic, speeding tickets.
Yeah, it's either 14 years or 17 years, 14 or 17
traffic
traffic
it's not bad.
violations.
I hope they
Mostly
don't.
his wife.
I hope they don't run that record on me, for crying out loud. But it seemed, and only 3 of them belonged to Marco. The rest of his wife, and
I got to tell you guys, when I was as young as Marco, my driving record was pretty interesting. And at one point in my late 20s, I remember having to beg a judge in England not to remove my license so I could keep driving to work.
Well, on so many levels, Mike, this is outrageous. First of all, they're trying to cover for a candidate who hasn't driven a car, nor has her husband, in at least 25 years because they have federal employees working for the Secret Service driving them during that time period. So, of course, they're not going to have any traffic violations. And moreover, the primary Democrat, the leading Democrat spouse, has been listed on the manifest of a private airplane that went to an island called Pedophile Island with Jeffrey Epstein, and hosting on the trip manifest was a woman who the Washington Post believes was procuring underage folks to go, girls to go to that island, and yet the New York Times takes up as if it's a major expose that some harried mom of a U.S. senator over a 14-year period has got some speeding tickets, one of which was, and they went through each one of them, one of which is she was going 8 miles too fast for a...
you realize, of course, that if this was about a Democrat, this would be police harassment.
You know if this was about a Democrat, given who Marco Rubio is, if a conservative publication did this about a Democrat of Hispanic background, we would be accused of being racist.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And if most of them were involving that candidate's wife, we would be accused of having a war on women. And so I think what I'd like to get out to folks is, as you read these articles, your antenna ought to be up about 2 things. One is how slanted the positive coverage is. In other words, the stories they run in the newspapers. But also be aware that there's many stories they don't run, because the New York Times has never mentioned the conviction of this billionaire Jeffrey Epstein, who took the former president, the wife of the Secretary of State, the wife of the primary Democrat candidate, to an island that was known by everyone as Pedophile Island, again and again.
Steve, you had a bunch of posts about another high roller Democrat donor.
Yeah, Bean.
Terry Bean.
Oregon. He knows Ray Buckley. Ray Buckley knows him. They've served on DNC committees together. It never got covered. New York Times certainly didn't cover it. It didn't get mentioned in the New Hampshire press anywhere. And it still hasn't. And, of course, this was a problem with a guy who was who had a boyfriend who was a young guy whom he was using to get younger guys. And it became a story, and somebody filed charges against him for basically child rape. And, the media buried it, and they didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this at the 603 Alliance Liberty Forum, where Jeff Chittister, Sylvia, I want to say Larson, but I can't remember if that's her last name, and I were on a panel talking about the state of journalism today. And I'll tell you, it was great fun to pick on the journalists at the back of the room, especially the reporterette from the Daily Beast. And the three of us said, ask all the hard questions. We want you to do that. But go after the important questions and go after both sides equally. Now, that's all we ask is who, what, when, where, why, and how. Do that job.
Yeah, set a harsh standard of questioning and behavior, but set it uniformly.
Yes.
Compare and contrast the hidden Hillary with Senator Cruz, who met a room full of conservative activists last weekend and said, ask the hard questions. Harder questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Hillary's saying don't ask any questions. But I don't know if you saw the YouTube video, go to the back of the line.
Well, here's the other one. When the reporters that were there at one of her last week's events saying there will be no interviews. Her speech is her interview. It's like, oh my gosh, and you guys didn't push back?
Is that?
It's Hillary. Well, she's doing what Obama did when he ran in 2008. They would direct people to YouTube videos that he did that were all scripted for answers to their questions when there was no way he would be prepared to answer them. So that was controlling the message. It's controlling the message. There's so much social media you can go, well, here he answered it here. He doesn't have to answer it for you.
And so the meeting that Mike was talking about, I was at it with Senator Cruz, and I think one of the things that was fairly interesting that he said, and perhaps encouraging, was that this is no different. I mean, Ronald Reagan was subject to this sort of bias and slanted news coverage and ignoring any of the picadillos of Democrats, but trying to take some traffic tickets of a Democrat candidate's wife and make it.
That's all they got, though, is traffic tickets. That's pretty impressive.
It is, actually.
That's the best you can do, really. I'd be like Marco going, traffic tickets? You got traffic tickets? What's that? She erased her server. I mean, come on.
Right, but the encouraging thing that Senator Cruz pointed out is, and today is an illustration. You guys are an illustration of that. We have so many different ways to get out to people. It's not like it was in 1980 where there's 3 big networks and there's the New York Times and there's a Washington Post and there's a Boston Globe, all these great liberal institutions, and that's the way that people get all their information. Now they're getting it from you, they're getting it from Facebook posts, they're getting it from townhall.com, they're getting it from Breitbart.com. There's ways of getting out there and finding the facts. We don't have to, and we won't be able to rely on the New York Times to tell us that the former president was hanging out with a pedophile and traveling with him. We won't hear that, but we will hear it if you just make sure you range wide and get out there and listen to outlets such as this.
We're going to take a very, very short break, about 10 seconds, and then we're going to come to the next segment. Stay tuned.
GrokTALK.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
GrokTALK.
Have a seat.
All right. How you doing, George? Welcome to the program. This is GrokTALK. We're doing different things here. We're getting rid of all these extra segment breaks that we don't need if we don't have to call somebody. Now, when you have to call somebody, you got to call them. They got to answer the phone. You got to talk to them for a couple seconds. You got to put them on hold. Things need to happen. We need breaks for that. But we don't have to take breaks, and we've been going to the 60-second break. We just had a 6 or 8 second break, which is plenty of time for us to talk. Let me make sure headset test.
Yeah.
Okay, you're on. All right. Okay, George Lambert's here. I did say he was coming in. I did.
You did.
And a quick reminder, Spreaker, TuneIn, iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio. You can certainly take us with you. People do. We have a lot of mobile listeners, and thank you very much for that. You can also check us out on GraniteGrok.com, where you can also listen on your mobile device, if you choose to do so. And
good.
we we have George here. He sent me a little message yesterday. He said, "Hey, you got a segment open?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." And you wanted to come and talk about some recent events.
Oh, yes.
Recent events.
I was actually talking to Mike at the Founders Day dinner, and he said, "You don't come in and talk to us enough." And, that was just before Jennifer Horn went off and gave a great talk on party unity and how we need to actually
at
protect
the event last week. At the event last
about
week,
being a uniter and all
yeah,
that.
exactly.
And making sure the public utterances aren't.
I wasn't going to post that video, but now I am.
Perfect. So my wife is sitting there next to me, and she tweets, "I wish I had worn hip waders." I mean, it was a preview of things to come. She actually posted that. I thought it was really funny because yesterday I was taking my daughter out to go and grab some coffee, and I actually saw the union leader. And I brought one for you just so that you guys could have a copy.
Well, hold on just a second. So let us bring it over to the Eye of Sauron. GOP chair, no trust in Ginta. Yeah, this from the lady who still owes how many hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS in the local towns?
You know what? The issues of, trust are interesting. I just posted on my Facebook some of the text message conversations I've had with Jennifer over the years. I don't delete any of my text messages. So when I was looking at running for governor, she gave me some suggestions and ideas and told me how, she needs to go out and protect Republican candidates. And, they're there.
She was telling
Please
you how to
take
run, George?
Oh, yeah, I wasn't listening.
She's never been elected to office.
I know. I've been elected a lot, right?
He's a real winner.
Since I am on sabbatical right now from writing, send that link to either Steve or Mike or somebody to post up. That will be amusing. We'll file it under humor.
Oh, great! Yeah.
Well, let's complete those thoughts because first of all, let us remember that Jennifer was the one who ran to the front of the pack to depose Jack Kimball when he was party chair, after swearing when he was first elected to be his friend, helper, whatever he wanted. Secondly, last week Jennifer was nominally supporting Frank Ginter, and this week she's got the knife so deep into his back it's coming out the front. And the moment of the week is not WTF, but WTG. Her behavior was so egregious, Brian Gould resigned.
Yes. Actually, what I was wondering last night while I was thinking about this is who is it she's trying to get to run in a special election for Congress?
We were talking about that, and we think it's Dan Innes.
Okay.
I don't know that that's her goal.
No.
I think it's to protect Kelly Ayotte.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah,
Could be.
I think she's basically trying to help Kelly, who's trying to position herself in the middle of or to the liberal end of the political spectrum, figuring she has all us conservatives and Republicans wrapped up, and she can get Democrat votes when Maggie Hassan runs.
I think she needs to get those liberal votes because she doesn't have conservative votes wrapped up.
Yeah.
That's what I was hearing
I
the
think
other
that's
night.
a net effect of what she's doing
Correct.
and who she's been.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've been sort of surveying this mass bill, and what it makes me think is, ever since Cliff Hurst ran for party chair, and they sent their hatchet man, who has since made up and made friends again with Cliff, sent their hatchet man to tell Cliff what would happen to him if he ran, and the various other things that they've done. Essentially, the party establishment of Kelly Ayotte has done everything they can to push aside, and the speaker's race interference, to push aside anybody who might be controversial, that might cause a bump in the road for the re-election of Empress Ayotte, without giving a moment's thought to the fact that she might not be electable anyway, and that they would be far better off tending to the basics of making sure that she was winning over hearts and minds, instead of trying to knock down anybody who looked the slightest bit controversial.
I think it definitely... I'm sorry, go ahead.
They're going to lose badly. I think they're going to lose badly as a result. Go ahead, Steve.
I think Skip's got something important to say, and it's probably more important than this, but this is a serious problem for any argument about local control, because they were throwing everything local under the bus just so they can have one Senate seat. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
They threw the House under the bus. They're throwing Congressional District 1 under the bus. They'd throw 2 under if they had it to throw. It's just it's aggravating as hell.
You know, I got calls from the press yesterday on it, and actually I'm on WMUR's political page on this, and some of the kind of off-the-record remarks I was getting from some of the more senior political reporters was that this is all Kelly Ayotte, and people even in our party, except for the very liberal wing, are saying, what is she doing? How stupid can she be? It's the same thing that we heard when she wrote the letter against my candidacy for Speaker. People are saying, there's no way she can win that. Either O'Brien wins or he doesn't win. If he wins, she has someone who, not particularly, as Speaker, who doesn't particularly care for, not going to help her out. If he loses, then you have a bunch of alienated conservatives. Well, it's the same thing that they're doing with Frank Ginter. Look, Frank and I have disagreed over the years on particularly fiscal issues.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I've criticized him on supporting the extension of the debt ceiling. He made some awful remarks about the House budget as recently as 3 or 4 weeks ago, calling it appalling, even though it was a conservative. It wasn't even a real conservative. If I'd been Speaker, that would have been a budget that the cuts went on, and they just kind of grew it less than the Democrats want, and he called it an appalling budget for not spending more. So we've disagreed. But there's no reason for anyone, whether it's a federal elected official, the U.S. Senate, or the party chair, to throw him under the bus and to presume to tell him to resign. What he's done is no worse than Maggie Hassan taking $33,000 in illegal union donations, and no one said resign, Governor. She doesn't. The basic thing we shouldn't do when we talked about the disparity and unfairness of media coverage, we don't have to participate in it. We don't have to sign up for that kind of a double standard. And Jennifer Horn has, and Kelly Ayotte has, and
Speaker Jasper has.
So, Bill, you're a lawyer. So I'm going to throw you under the bus a little bit. After this,
I'm usually looking at the muffler system in most buses that go by these days.
Right. Well, after reading the documentation, I went to the bank and I added my 2 daughters' signatures onto our family account for them. Okay, they're way under 18, and I will add my 3rd daughter on when she's a little older, but if Frank's name had been on the account, which was formed when he was a minor, as a signatory, we wouldn't be having this question today.
And there's another perspective here, too. If you look at the U.S. Supreme Court's campaign financing laws, in which they've thrown out a lot of these restrictions, one of the things they said is it's constitutional to restrict money going to a candidate in order to avoid undue influence from being purchased. And that's the only reason we're justifying it. We're taking away the right of people to express themselves through their resources, through their assets, in the political realm the way they want to. I think you have a darn good argument here, constitutional argument, that mom probably has as much influence as she's ever going to have, and giving you another $300,000 isn't going to really add to it. And so the whole constitutional justification, when it's a close family member, a spouse, a parent, sibling, is just isn't there, and therefore that isn't constitutional.
And there is still the matter that the FEC fined him. He's just going to pay his fine and return the money, which is what they asked him to do under the law.
Right.
And that's it.
And they do this all the time.
They do, constantly.
I went and looked at the history, and this happens all the time.
If you go to the FEC and you just look at violations, there are hundreds and thousands of pages of these things.
You know who almost got caught with one, and I don't think she did? Kelly Ayotte misfiled her paperwork and had to file an amendment as well in the same election cycle. You guys should actually put a link to that.
Well, in trying to protect Kelly Ayotte, I think what the NHGOP has already forgotten that we already took out Frank Ginter once when he ran for re-election because he lied to us during his first term saying that, well, my number one priority is to cut the spending, as you mentioned, Bill. And I held him to it over and over and over again. And I convinced my 0.05 to 1.5% of the conservatives in the state so that he did lose. And this last election in November, you saw 2 top-tiered candidates dissing the universe of voters that they had, wishing that they wanted different ones, and they lost. And I think we're going to do the same thing to Kelly because she lied to us on illegal immigration, for instance, and I've got her on the video being against illegal immigration and for amnesty. So here's the deal. It's slipping out of the New Hampshire GOP's policy to be able to do this. Now, should Frank resign? I think he should have resigned and stayed resigned for lying to us the first time. For that, I will never change my mind. Okay? I will talk to him, but he lied. As far as this is concerned, I think given all of the establishment Republicans going for his scalp, I'm basically saying, look, Frank, your public lobbying career is over with at this point. Even if you just get thrown off all your committees in Congress, you got a nice cushy job for the next 2 years. Stick with it so you can stick the rhinos back here in the establishment of the NHGOP in the eye and say,
Skip, he's not going anywhere.
No, I hope I hope he doesn't. I hope he's there just poking at Jennifer Horns and Kelly Ayottes and Papa Smurfs and all those other people in the aisle all the time.
When I talk about the lack of political acumen on the part of the New Hampshire GOP chair, that's part of it. You don't ask somebody to resign unless they're going to resign.
Or you have the power to make them.
You have the power to make them.
Like
and otherwise,
Stella Tremblay.
Yeah,
they made her resign. She didn't need to resign. She didn't do anything.
No, she shouldn't have.
No, and so it just makes her look weak and ineffective. So it doesn't speak well for who she is, and moreover, I'm on the executive board of the.
So when did you get the email, Bill?
I'll tell you.
Right down to brass tacks. You got the email, right?
I ended up getting an email. I think it was when we were in session. No, it was Tuesday. There was an email that came from because I mentioned to Lino Avellini, who's Belknap County Chair. He and I know each other. He's in the House.
Not Belknap.
What county is he in?
Grassman's Belknap.
Okay,
Grafton?
Who's Lino? He's chair of one of them. Oh, I don't know. Anyway,
one of the area chairs, probably.
Maybe he's an area chair up there, but I know he shows up in the e-board meetings and we'll sit next to each other, going, "Oh my God." So I know he's on the e-board. So I mentioned. I said, "Did you receive that?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, and then it was sort of like, "Have you guys seen this report? I'm very disturbed." And I said to him, and I thought to myself when I was it, I hope she doesn't do anything here. Should I give her a call? Or she usually doesn't take my call. Maybe she wouldn't. I'd just say, lay off. But then she came out with that. You saw it. I mean, it was in the press. And when did that come out? Thursday?
It was in the press.
No, actually, you can go read the letter on WMUR.com.
Well, of course it's going to be.
The whole thing.
Of course.
There's clips in here. The whole letter might even be in here. I
think it was in one of the articles.
They actually ordered pizza and got beers over at the New Hampshire Democrat State Party headquarters. Probably, woohoo! Yeah, they're doing our work for us.
Yeah, it was terribly self-indulgent of her. It showed a complete lack of understanding. And moreover, I'm reading it and thinking to myself, because she said, "Well, I don't believe him." What do I care what you think, Jennifer? You don't believe him, so what? It's not for you to say.
Mike?
It's terrible. So first of all, as Skip said, we don't agree with Frank Ginter over everything. We especially don't agree with some of his votes in Congress. But, I bumped into Frank last weekend, and this was before the Jennifer letter, and I said, "Frank, stay in there, stick it to him." And,
so,
and he said, "Thank you, of course."
Before the break comes out, I want everyone to think about, over the break, all of you guys, I'm calling for Kelly Ayotte's puppet, Jennifer Horn, to resign. Okay. And I believe that she should get, because of all of her behavior, I think she's really got to go.
All right, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back and maybe talk about that.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
This is our NHGOP leadership music today.
I'm going to ask you how much an ad is so that I can run a, Jennifer must resign ad next week.
How big of a border ad do you want?
Yeah, we'll move stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want my name on it. I mean,
Okay.
I absolutely want my name on it.
I will come off my sabbatical to put that up.
Thank you.
Plus, there's money, so we always need money.
Just tell me how much.
We do need money.
Well, we do.
We haven't asked for donations. Please donate to Greg. Okay, anyway, so let's proceed with this. Jennifer Horn is a mess. She's surrounded by a mess.
She's got her own personal issues. She's going to be in court on Wednesday over at her house.
Juliana Bergeron is a rhino of extreme. Steve Dupree, bad on a whole range of issues.
It is time for us to go and clean house.
We won't talk about those specifically, but we'll go back to the... We don't want to go there. We've already been there. We said we wouldn't go there.
But I like going
Jennifer.
there.
I know. You're on sabbatical.
Where
Stop.
can't you go? Because I can go there.
Well, Dupree. We weren't going to talk about Dupree.
Right.
We want to focus on
Dupree,
Jennifer.
yeah,
Jennifer.
Just Jennifer. J-Ho, as I call her, J-Ho.
J-Ho.
That's how she's in my phone.
J-Horn, yes.
No, just J-Ho.
J-Ho.
And I'm going to use that in a minute.
God. All right.
Bill's
the beauty of this is that
can't even crack a smile.
I'm not going.
Because
I'm not going there.
well, the beauty of this is because we announced that Bill was going to be on the program, so there's Democrats listening to this show.
Oh, right.
All right, so tell us about...
You may get quoted, George, by them now.
Good. Tell us about J-Ho.
Have we started yet?
Yeah, go.
All right.
Go.
Well, I was just saying that I have Jennifer Horn listed in my cell phone as J-Ho.
Okay.
All right? Because I don't actually trust anything that she says, and I believe she's selling out to anybody who wants to give her money.
Do you
as we
need to
saw
leave the room?
Hell, look, we saw this in the last Senate race.
Mm-hmm.
She was basically going out and telling town chairs they needed to introduce Scott Brown. Right? No, in the primary. We're not supposed to be doing this, but the town chair of Litchfield, by Little Town, resigned over it. He says, if the party says that we can't do this, but she can call down and make the area chairs go and tell her to do that, that's a problem. We have this consistent behavior, which is say one thing and do another. Let's call it out. She said we have to call out, the bad parts of our party. Well, I say we call out Jennifer, and we do it by getting 50 GOP members' signatures, and we go out and hold a special meeting, and we pick a new chair. Or let a majority of the members of the party say she's doing a good job. And I have started that campaign yesterday. I have signatures. I'm looking for more, and I will get 50 signing members to do that in the next week.
I had dinner out with the most esteemed wife at an establishment which is run by a good Republican gentleman and his wife. And usually when I'm in and he floats around the dining room as host, and he came over and we chatted for a little bit, and he said, have you been to the local Belknap County Republican meetings lately? I said, no, I've given up on them. I really have. And he said, yeah, me too. And I think I've given up on the Republican Party here in New Hampshire. And here, I've been putting up posts about people who are saying, I'm done, I'm over with it. And this is just another instance where I don't think she's done the over-under, opportunity cost of what she's doing to the party in doing this.
Well, I don't think Kelly did either.
No.
We in my little town of Mount Vernon, where I come from, we lost our town committee. Everyone resigned. It's a little town. It's like 2,400. But we had an active, 12, 15 members who would come, be pretty active. They resigned from the committee, and they've given up their party registration over the Jasper thing. Now, part of that is, they knew me and they were irritated. But I just found out about this, when we tried to put together an event and bring in a speaker, actually Harriet Cady.
Yeah.
And we reached out and said, "Hey guys, we're having another meeting." And said, "We don't belong to the Republican Party anymore."
Yeah.
That's
what
this.
That too.
Yeah, that's the natural effect of this effort on the part of the Kelly Ayotts, of the Jennifer Horn,
Papa Smurfs,
and others to basically tell the conservative activists, we want your votes, we want your money, we want your activism, we don't want you to have any control over the party. And if someone like George comes up as an activist or a conservative leader, they'll push it down.
Well, Bill, I have a question for you. You were there the day that we voted on the members of the state party, is that right?
voted on the members?
We actually went to the meeting. We picked 72 or whatever they are, Hillsborough County members. You were there. You spoke. You won last year.
Oh, last time, yeah, over in Milford.
Yes. Okay. Now, please tell me, I have been a member of the state party for 8 years,
right,
and 2 write-in candidates beat my wife and myself. After I ran for Senate, she ran for the House.
And while I was there, I don't spend a lot of time, as you know, in county. I assumed that somebody had lobbied against you.
Actually,
I assumed that people had circulated around and
I totally agree, because it was like a month after I went out and said that we're going to find another candidate against Kelly Ayotte. Because I said, Kelly Ayotte's not representing Republicans. She's actually representing the national establishment. They wanted Scott Brown. We need to get back to the basics. What does it mean to be a Republican in New Hampshire? And why are they taking people? I think I've demonstrated consistent conservative Republican values, but I can't be a member of the state party because they think I'm a troublemaker.
Well, they kicked me out. They ran people against me and some folks who, for the first time, started showing up, and I lost a tiebreaker. So, when you see it, I'm an anecdote. You're an anecdote. But when you see this over and over again, it's no longer an anecdote. And they want the Republicans they want to change the Republicans that they have. Well, the problem is, as I've been saying for years, when the idea of a real Tea Party came up, the Republicans would say, but you won't win. My response is,
neither
but
will
you'll lose.
Exactly.
And
I think the proper word to describe your chain of anecdotes is a repeated series of abuses and usurpations.
Well said, Mike. Well said. But it really gets to that point where, when you start looking at this, when they send the message both verbally and non-verbally, we don't want you around. Why should they be surprised when we're not around to vote for them? I proved that in this last election with both Scott Brown and Walt Havenstein. I believe that Granite Rock, among other actors, was a big party to, no, we're not going to vote for you. A lot of other people got lots of votes, but when it came to the top of the tickets, the votes weren't there.
I grew up pretty much high school, college, law school, in a state that I saw over those years the Republican Party drift away. That was
I'm from Massachusetts as well.
And it drifted away because the folks there who are like the folks we're talking about and trying to push away the conservatives and the activists and people who are too vocal, like George, on conservative principles, those people basically spent their political careers chasing the Democrats, assuming that we have to adopt light versions of the Democrat philosophy, that we too have to have an activist government, but not quite as active. We too have to have programs that we spend money on people. We just feel bad about when we raise taxes to do it. And in the end, in Massachusetts, I think what happened is that people weren't given a real choice. And there was no reason to vote for Republicans.
You also have to figure it's a lot like when you were a kid playing backyard football, or you were playing basketball or baseball, and everybody picked. You had 2 captains, and they'd each pick people.
They pick.
And they would pick the best people who represented what they wanted. Let's call it their values, their basketball values first. And the people who were squishier, maybe not as good, they picked them last. Well, in an election, when you do that, Democrats win every single time.
Well, look what happened with Scott Brown when he decided, I'm going to out-abortion Jean Shaheen.
Like that could even happen. He's got like $1 billion from abortion lobbies.
Yeah, but that's what he tried to do. So what choice did we have there? And a lot of people in New Hampshire are pro-life. So he basically told them, screw you. I'm going after the Democrats.
And the
I don't want
pro-lifers will vote on single issue.
And so this meeting that we were talking about, that you and I were there, Steve, and Mike was there. No, Marmar was there.
Mike and Marmar. Mike's sat next to you, I think, or almost next to you.
Almost next to you.
Yeah.
2 seats away.
Yeah, sorry about that. But as Senator Cruz said, one of the big differences there's a number of them, but one of the big voting differences between Ronald Reagan's victories and the defeats that Republican presidential candidates have had over the last 20, 30 years has been the fact that the evangelicals are sitting out, and it's because they don't have a choice. Why vote for McCain? Because on their issue, on a very important issue, it's not going to make any difference. And so you got it's at the point now where there's 50 million evangelicals that sat out the last election.
Yeah, absolutely, Bill, and that is why. And if you ever speak to him, it's a real treat. Rafael Cruz is out there beating the bushes, trying to engage the Black Robe Regiment to get those evangelicals out for Ted or anybody else who's worthy of it, but Ted first.
Well, here's the problem. I've had my literal screaming matches with Doug Scammon at a precursor to the 603 Alliance. And he said we shouldn't be talking about social issues at all. And I'm sorry, but as we saw, you said $1 billion. Planned Parenthood gets a lot of money for abortions, taxpayer money, but they also do $1.2 billion worth of contraceptive business. So once again, that's why they're going after Kelly Ayotte. But all social issues have fiscal costs. That's the main point.
Explain that last point, because I don't think some of your listeners probably know.
We may not have time to explain it, but...
let's do it after the break.
Okay, we'll do it after the break. You had a quick point?
Oh, I was actually, just for clarification, saying, do you oppose contraception as part of the Planned Parenthood, overall structure? If you separate
there's a different issue there.
If it's privately funded, I don't give a damn what they do.
Correct.
There's a different issue.
But
correct.
If you're talking about taxpayer funded, some people oppose it. Why are they paying for it? And that's really what it comes down to. It's not their money.
I agree with that.
So, all right, we have 30 seconds to kill before I go to the break, but I didn't want to get into a good discussion and have to break it in half.
Yeah, rent seeking is really what it's all about.
Yeah.
Because government is too big, too many places to do the crony capitalism and the crony politics to gain an advantage over your competitors, be they actual in the marketplace or in the political realm.
All right, that's probably close enough. We're going to take a quick break. This is GrokTALK. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
We are GrokTALK, coming to you live, unless you're listening to the podcast, from Concord, New Hampshire, the center of all the evil in the state of New Hampshire. And there's some good. But anyway, lots going on. You first.
Yes.
Okay.
I had said all social issues have fiscal costs, and that's because almost all social issues have now become involved politically, and government is involved as well. And I'm glad that you caught that, Bill. Where you see the Republicans trying to stay away from the social issues because they feel, well, we'll lose votes that way. Well, you know something? That shows an abdication of principle. And there's no way that you can just govern on fiscal issues, because as we saw with the New Hampshire State Senate this week, which it did them no good whatsoever. The House gave a pretty good budget, well under what Maggie Hassan, Maggie the Red, had proposed, and the New Hampshire House kept the line. But yet there goes the Republican senators giving 60% of the increase that Maggie wanted. Well, did the Democrats and the left say thank you for overriding those nasty Republicans in the House? No, they didn't. They're still complaining that the Republicans, even in the Senate, are evil because they didn't give them every single sacred dollar that a Democrat had said. You're killing people. You're hurting the most vulnerable. You know something? A lot of this used to be charity in the civil society sector of our lives. And it is because big government keeps getting bigger and crowding out that civil society. There is no buffer anymore that allows us as individual actors to voluntarily give of ourselves. And a lot of us are starting to say, why should I give voluntarily when the government's forcibly forcing me to participate in charity? Some of it I like, and a lot of it I don't. I don't want to participate in abortions. I don't want to participate in a lot of stuff. But you're forcing me. And the more that you take out of my wallet, the less apt I am to do what de Tocqueville saw in the mid-1800s of Americans' greatest strength, which is the ability to voluntarily associate, band together, fix a problem, and when it's done, go away. And instead you have government programs that go on forever and are never judged on their merits.
You know,
it's the zombie apocalypse, Skip. But, you know, I defend to the death the right of Planned Parenthood to exist as long as they follow current health regulations and they make their money from either for-profit activities or donations to enable them to provide services for the poor. But when they hold a gun to our heads and demand that we pay for things that we disagree with, that's where the problem is. And Republicans don't have the courage to most don't have the courage to stand up and simply say that.
You know, and the other point I think that's important for all of us to acknowledge is that you can't have a fiscal house in order when there's social problems in society as a whole. For us to think that we can concentrate only on fiscal issues and ignore the social issues, the rampant breakdown of the family, and the attempt of government through many programs to substitute themselves for parents is just an illusion. But you know, before we went on the break, you had mentioned something about Planned Parenthood and contraception. One of the things that is happening in Washington now, I don't think most of your listeners are probably aware of that. A number of Republican senators, and to her credit, Kelly Ayotte is one of them, have filed a bill that would allow birth control pills to be available over the counter, no prescription. And who should be one of the primary opponents of it? It's Planned Parenthood, because of two reasons. One is that they want to continue this war on women, and they'll keep it out of your medical plans, and we want to make sure they're in there, and they want to terrorize some religious organizations for not putting it into their employees' plans. They love it. It feeds to their base. But the other issue is much more direct and prosaic, and it's they make money on it. You know, people have to go to Planned Parenthood clinics to get their prescriptions, and if they can just go to Walmart and buy it off the counter, then they're going to lose a huge source of income.
Yeah, like I said before the break, $1.2 billion is what they do in contraceptives every year.
So that issue, the left has the same position on that issue they have on issues, for example, involving the African American community, where they try to keep these programs in place in order to keep the African Americans and blacks in this country dependent.
It's control.
They want women who want to have access to contraception to be dependent, particularly poor women, to be dependent on Planned Parenthood clinics.
Yep, they want their own slave plantations, modern style.
Absolutely.
Jane.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am filling in for Mike, who's on the phone.
I see. Nice to see you.
Well, thank you.
Well, you know, it's interesting you're talking about this because New Hampshire Right to Life recently had quite a bunch of documentation that came in under our Right to Know requests. And it's so interesting across the board that you see that the hike in prices for Planned Parenthood over-the-counter contraceptives is like 75% more to the consumer than if it was bought at another in another place. So when you're talking about, they don't want to lose the business, absolutely. But they're milking the business, and they're really screwing the consumer to get as much bang for their buck as they can. And I'm certain that, those that are usually in need of contraception, although today...
End the contraception cartel. Dun,
what
dun,
the
dun.
heck?
But Jane, why do we expect anything more from an organization that finds its genesis in the efforts of a woman to keep minorities from having children.
But they'll deny that till the cows come home.
Well,
because it's all about women's health care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and someone
Sure
who exalted in her writings over the fact that she was received so well at a Ku Klux Klan rally when she spoke to them.
There's so much documentation. If anybody Googles it, you will see where that all comes from. I mean, this isn't made-up stuff. This is facts that the left wants you to not know about. And so rather than deal with what we know as history on this subject, they'll say that we're just crazy right people that don't like women. Well, I'm a woman. I love women. And you know what?
And so much of the Democrat rhetoric and argument is fact-free, whether
No
it's
kidding.
Hands up, what was that? The Ferguson thing, hands up,
Yeah.
I surrender.
Yeah, I surrender.
Whatever. And it's just all made up.
Totally.
The rape crisis on our college campuses, made up stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike?
Yeah. As I say, the old hands up, don't shoot. But
that's it.
Yeah, I mean, Margaret Sanger, the original National Socialist racist.
Right.
That's right. All right, George had something to say.
I did. I'm going to say that on this particular topic, I am the most liberal person in the room by a long shot.
Yes, you are.
Exactly.
Yes, you are.
But I've never hidden that. But let's get the government out. I mean, really, my argument is the government shouldn't be here. Women should be making their own decisions. They should be, unrestricted from intervention. And that's part of what we tried to do in the House.
But George, the leftists try to make us extremists on this. And as Senator Cruz was saying at this meeting last weekend, you have to ask them, what are you for when it comes to abortion? What they're for is abortion up to the minute of birth is permissible.
And afterwards.
And even after, if there's a partial live birth, that they're saying that's a woman's right, is to kill a child. And if you survey that through polling surveys, only 9% of the people would say abortions during the period of viability is acceptable. And yet, if you Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren, all the local Democrats here, that's their position. And yet, we're the extremists. No, by definition, they're extreme.
The problem with that is, and I've been saying this for years, I went to Fran Wendelboe. After J.R. Hall told me that I was, said I need to figure out my pro-life, pro-choice position. So I went to Fran and I said, this is where I am on all these issues. And she said, you're pro-life. Okay? And I said, well, but I have some interest in having a woman get an abortion in the first trimester. And she goes, well, that's still pro-life. Okay?
We wouldn't say that.
Well,
New Hampshire
no,
Right
but
to Life would not say that.
But then I talked to some other people and they say no. So one of the things that we have is a general definition that makes it so that pro-life is all the way over on the right, and you have pro-choice being everything else, so they own being able to categorize.
No, they really don't.
Only because you've given it to them.
That's right, exactly
you don't
right.
have to give them that.
Absolutely.
They say we're pro-choice, but they want to murder babies that are viable.
I simplified the debate about life a while ago, and I talked to you about it the other idea. What do you call it before conception? Is there a term for it before conception? Is there anything going on before conception? Absolutely not. What happens after conception? Life. And that's the end of the discussion, because you can't have any life at any point after that without conception. There's no way to do it.
Right.
You can't create it. It just happens then. And there is no other point after that where it is anything else. Because if it is, then you're just playing with numbers and moving boxes around it.
But see, that's the discussion they want us to have, Steve, is where on that continuum does life begin?
Conception.
And yet we should deal with them based on where they are.
Oh, absolutely.
And they are at a point that most people in this country, all but 9%, would say that's horrible, you're committing murder.
And that's the thing. And the organizations that support them with money, tons of money, expect them to hold that position regardless.
There is the point of contention that we should be really focusing on. Life is an issue where, it has a social implication, but you need to get the message to folks about what life is meaning for you, right, in order to beat that. What we don't have to do is cede this to leftist, progressive media who will continue to paint those that believe that life begins at conception, or life, wherever you want, I guess, in the debate will begin, is someone that's out of touch and doesn't stand for women and their rights. I saw an article on the internet last night that discussed the past 37 Gallup polls on life. in a very expanded version, do you believe, expanded in the degree, do you believe in abortion? For the last 27 years, those Gallup polls have come back saying that they are against abortion, that the most public members are against abortion.
I got to move the camera. Go ahead, hold it up.
Hashtag.
Did you miss that? That's
pound sign.
If you didn't hear this,
Ho must go.
That's how Jennifer Horn, J-Ho. That's how he has her in her phone.
Well,
anyway,
I don't know. I think that's disrespectful, but certainly the issue of Jennifer Horn is one
J-Lo, J-Ho.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
Anyway,
well,
so
let me just say this.
Oh, Mike's talking. Hang on. Go ahead.
Why not? From one big ass actress to another.
Wow, we're going to get a lot of hits on this podcast.
I'm sure we are.
You know, again, I'm going to go back to Greenock Rock's other co-founder, Doug Lambert, and we were on the Arnie Arneson show when she was on PBS.
Awesome. This is so awesome.
And we were debating two people from Blue Hampshire. Of course, that started off real well. This young jerk came in, looked at us and said, "I would have thought that you guys were much younger." And I said, "Great, we're starting off with an ageism slap."
Yeah.
Who was that?
I forget his name. He's kind of disappeared. But
don't you just take
kid
him?
who was around? He was head of the.
No, it wasn't
Hampshire.
Dean Barker. It wasn't Dean.
No,
Barker.
not it's Ted something. Another. I think he ran against me. He was head of the New Hampshire, the UNH College Democrats.
Could have been. It's faded.
They were turning out. They had the chief lobbyist from Planned Parenthood ran against me at one point. They were
it's on
Greenock.
It's actually on Greenock Rock somewhere. But Doug said something because we got on this idea of life. And Doug said the perfect thing, because most people on the left are totally against the death penalty.
Yes.
But they're for abortion.
Right.
And Doug said very plainly, "I will trade you the life of a guilty felon for the life of an innocent baby."
Wow, that's a great. And what was the response?
It would be speechless.
Yeah.
Well, let's do this. Nope. Oh, I just lost my camera. It was... Yeah. They were speechless. They had no idea what to do. Oh, now it's back.
Loose connection.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-oh. Yeah. Bad connection. Here
All
we
right,
go.
we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back
really
while
bad.
you fix whatever it is you
No,
have
it's
to fix.
fixed. It's fixed.
Well, I'm still taking a break, so too bad.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Rock Talk.
GrokTALK. They're talking.
Yes,
during
we
the
are.
break. It is GrokTALK. We talk. That's what we do. We talk and we grok.
And we
You
grok
had
in
something.
fullness.
Something about Senate race you wanted to add before we forget.
Absolutely. For my second time, I'm running for Senate in District 18. My last run, I lost by 998 votes against Donna Soucy. She was the number 2 vote getter in all of my districts. The only person who beat her is Chris Pappas. I was within 200 votes of the governor, which I think is pretty cool. But the state party is out encouraging other people to run against me, even though I've done better than any Republican in that district in a long time.
This is for New Hampshire State Senate, not U.S.
No, in Manchester. So, but I am excited to say that I have told my opponent, good luck with that. I'm going to beat you. And I have every intention of bringing all the resources to bear.
And who is that?
It's Ralph Bohm, who happens to live in my community.
So that's a primary opponent.
Oh, yeah. And then, whoever the Democrats put up, because I don't believe they can put up a candidate that can beat
Is Donna Soucy running again?
I'm told she's running either for governor, executive council, or Congress. But I was in... I had somebody come up to me a month or so ago and tell me that they overheard my name
Wait a
in
minute.
a restaurant.
If you can't see that on camera, Steve was wiping the bottom of his foot on one of
Scraping.
CNHT's chairs. Ed will love you for that.
So,
I'm sorry, Ed, I got some Donna Susi on your chair.
so a friend of mine calls me up and he says, I was sitting in a restaurant and the people at the next booth were talking about you. And I go, you know what? This never ends. And it was, they were recruiting for Donna Susi, the new campaign managers. And I was a major part of the discussion. And I'm going, you know what? This is after the election. They know I'm coming back. They know I'm a threat. They know I'm a challenge.
They might have like this blogger who'll be out of jail by then. That can
He'll help, I'm sure.
Mr. Carl Gibson.
You might try to suppress your turnout. Anyway. All right, we got about 10 minutes.
What else is new, Jane, in the Right to Life environment?
Oh, my goodness. We have so many events coming up that my head is spinning. I'm trying to keep hold
just
of
so
all
you know,
of the threads.
He's getting 50 delegates to sign to get rid of Horn.
Really?
And we're going to add your boyfriend there.
Oh, my boyfriend?
Dupree.
Ah, yes, Mr. Dupree.
Anyway,
That's a revelation.
Lots of events.
Well, I have to say that I wish we'd go further.
Mhm.
If we're going to clean house, let's clean house.
Well, we did mention Juliana Bergeron.
To the
delegates. We
Yes.
can let them decide.
And I think, it's not going to be very hard at all to find the 50 delegates. But
Are you a delegate?
I am not.
He's already got some.
I have some, but
Delegate
I'm
or
looking for more.
state member?
State member.
Yeah. Not me. I got pushed out.
I got pushed out, too. Are you?
No.
Nobody in the room except for Bill.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think.
Bill, are you on our list, or do you want to stay out of this?
At
one?
this
Mike.
point, at this
Ask
point,
Mike.
given the culture, Mike.
Mike, are you a state committee member?
No.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Conservatives are not represented.
At this point, I live in Hillsborough County, so I don't even know if I could get close.
What group have
There's
I
a ton.
fallen into here?
There's a ton of Belknap delegates.
You've known us for
conservative.
years, Bill.
I
You
know.
know exactly where you are. And you came voluntarily.
I certainly did. I welcomed the opportunity.
Oh, Mike's talking.
Folks.
What's that, Mike?
Yeah, let us not forget, folks, that illegal aliens may get motor voter registration, but honest legal aliens aren't allowed to vote and aren't allowed to hold officer positions in the state GOP because, after all, that might be the wrong kind of influence.
Actually, I think, based on some of the rules in domicile, they can't be involved in federal elections, but they may be able to be involved in state elections. That one's like really, really...
No, I think our state rules require U.S. citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I said before, look at what Obama's doing. That's not going to last for long.
So were you guys talking about, before I came in, I'm sure one of the topics was the
Everything.
Horn thing?
Yes.
So where do you stand on that?
Well, I mean, if you looked on WMUR, you'd see there, and I would basically try to repeat what I said there, which is, over the years, I have found Frank Ginter to be a person who cares very deeply about his public service and cares very deeply about his constituents. And he doesn't need party officials or other elected officials telling him whether he should resign or not. And in point of fact, and this goes beyond what I said to WMUR, the more I look at the FEC report, the more tenuous it seems, their conclusion seems, and moreover, I think there's some constitutional problems with trying to restrict family members from donating to your campaign as much as they want to, because the Supreme Court cases have said those restrictions find their constitutional foundation in the fact that you're trying to prevent undue influence on a candidate. And it's the candidate's mother, for heaven's sakes. The candidate's mother is going to probably have a lot of influence, and whether she does or not, $300,000 is not going to buy much more.
So
I don't think it's constitutional. And I think Jennifer should not have sent out the email. I think Kelly Ott should have backed off. I think it's presumptuous for her to tell people to resign. And moreover, they're both playing into this double standard of political behavior that we have between Democrats and Republicans. Who even thought of telling Governor Hassan to resign when she accepted $33,000 in not illegal donations from her mother, but illegal donations from unions? No one did. And so it's a double standard. It's unnecessary. It's presumptuous. I've disagreed with Frank Inter on a number of issues. I think, and I was very disappointed in his choice to vote to extend the debt ceiling.
Absolutely.
I was disappointed in some recent remarks he made about the House budget that we passed, which I thought was, not as conservative as I want, but not bad. And I called him out on it.
Yeah.
But this isn't entirely inappropriate.
Yeah, it is. I believe this is inappropriate because I'm not a Ginter fan per se. But the way that this has been handled has just been egregious. What is the Republican Party thinking? And the question is, who do they really want in that seat? What's going on? Number one, why is Ayotte sticking her nose into everything that happens here on the state level? Now, I understand she's our senator, but look at how she jumped into the Scott Brown case, right? A primary. Here she's going to go, and her good friend Scott Brown, who couldn't wait to send money to Planned Parenthood, by the way. But I mean, what is she thinking? She did the same thing about, other issues that were really important here on the state level.
The speaker's race and all that. When I was speaker, I reached out to her on a couple of issues that I think were important to the state as well as important to our party. One was right to work. I asked her to reach out. I needed 6 or 7 more votes in order to override Governor Lynch's veto. I asked her to reach out and talk with some of the people. She said, I don't get involved in state issues.
Right.
That was a response to me. And then again, I went to her and I said, well, this is so important, this issue. It's the funding issue for education. We're trying to really address this. And she said, I don't get involved in those things. Well, except if she thinks, and I think you put it well, if they, quote, think someone's going to be disruptive, and to them, conservative is synonymous with disruptive. And so if someone who is too much of an activist, too principled, they don't want those people because they might point out how unprincipled, and I say that in a political philosophy sense, not in a personal behavior sense, but how unprincipled Senator Ayotte is.
All right. Politically speaking, absolutely. Yeah. I tried 4 times when I was a sitting House rep to get time to see her, and I could never get an appointment. Yeah. Couldn't get past the aides.
Yeah.
Mike, what do you got?
Yeah, two quick thoughts. So, be it resolved that the establishment appears to have it in for Frank, and that Ayotte and the others are working to unseat him. What dog does, or what horse does Joe McQuaid have in this race would be one question. And the other is, if the party is obviously acting to dissolve the people and choose another, it is time for the people to choose a new party.
And we have an opportunity to take it over with just one meeting of the delegate body to go and reset the rules, to change the underlying rules, and to make it so that...
George, some political advice there. Don't call a meeting unless you're going to win. Mm-hmm. Because it's even worse.
Okay.
If you call a meeting and you go after the king, and the king survives, you've lost your opportunity, and it gets worse.
Thank you.
What opportunity has been lost?
You've ended up solidifying her position.
Mm-hmm. If the delegates support her.
And you end up in the Tower of London.
Right, you end up in the Tower of London.
I'm already in the Tower of London,
No,
folks.
but it's that's the push you'll get back from people like me, which says if you're going to have a meeting, it's one thing to get 50 votes. You're right, you can get 50 out of, 400 or 500 people. You can get 50 people to sign anything, probably. But do you have 200 to 250 votes who will walk in there and take her out of her position?
That's how you build the campaign.
You don't think that that's possible?
I'm not saying it's possible or impossible, but
how would you know if you're going to win?
You got to go
make
vote.
sure you have all your ducks in a row.
Yeah, you know who the universe of votes are. I mean, and you have them lined up first.
You have to whip the delegates in the line.
Well,
and
you
make sure
hope.
Getting the meeting is the last step, not the first step.
We all know, Bill, that you can try to get the votes all you want. That doesn't mean that the vote's going to come your way. We certainly learned that in what they did to you, right? I mean, because the shenanigans that happened behind the curtain, sometimes you don't find out about until after.
So you provide a buffer. If you need 250 votes, I don't know. I can't remember
I've helped do this before on 2 separate occasions. I have all of the lists. I know where people tend to fall.
But be careful, because you walked into one of the largest group of these people who you want to show up, and you couldn't get elected as a state committee member.
That's correct.
And so those are the same votes who are going to be for or against this.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need names, and you need people, and you're right. I mean, any sort of secret ballot type of vote you have to assume 20 or 30% of the people who you're talking to aren't telling you the truth.
That's right.
The only time they're telling you the truth if they say, I don't support you. And then you probably know, that's a solid vote.
This is my question, and this question's come up with the Steve Dupree thing with the Planned Parenthood debacle, that we sat down and the same words, I have to tell you, came out, like you're saying, you don't do anything unless you're sure you can win. I think in the political realm, that's true, right? And you're a political animal, and that's the logical, correct way to look at it, right? The other side of me says, you know what? How can you ever plan a win? How can you ever plan a win? And when does the time come to say, screw the win? We're going to stand up here because it's time. It's time to do it.
You're moving the goalposts. And I'm not saying in a bad way. A better way of saying that is not moving the goalposts. You're establishing a different definition of success. If the definition of success is not to get rid of this leadership, but is to take a principled stand that solidifies people understanding of the issues, that's entirely different. Go have your meeting and scream and yell and change minds.
And will it organize? Will it organize people for future efforts? This is what the Democrats do. The Portsmouth plastic bag ban was to try to get them to ban plastic bags, but it was also so this national grassroots groups could organize in New Hampshire. And they are. And their next step is to lobby the legislature.
Right.
They are here to organize.
Right.
If they win or lose, they're going to organize.
So does it work in that realm, though?
Apparently
is my question.
It does.
It can, but understand why you're doing things and just don't thrash out because it's an obnoxious email, and the whole process is another example of us being stiffed as conservatives. You have to say, what am I trying to do?
It's not just an obnoxious email, Bill. This is telling limited information voters that Frank Ginta, in his own district, the place where he was a mayor, is untrustworthy.
It's all wrong, but you have some goals. Is the goal just to have a final temper tantrum over it? No, of course not.
No,
is the goal?
I want her gone.
Is the goal to solidify the base? If you want it gone, then the way you get her gone is you go out there and do all the hard work of lining up your votes beforehand. And then you take 50 of them and have a meeting.
I know.
But if you have 50 and then you say, oh, my Lord, we're going to have a meeting, you might find it's never there, and then you've solidified a position.
Okay. We got about 20 seconds.
I think to summarize is...
I'm going to start turning mics off.
When you look at the issue, do a 360 to see what the other issues are first before taking that first step, like Bill just said. It's not just your issue, but what are the other issues, especially
we got to go.
Steve
It's GrokTALK. See us next week.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Rock.